Hi, welcome back. I'm Michael. What we're going to do today is give all of our orchids a flush in the sink. We recently potted these in Leca from the original growing medium, and we're going to make sure we get rid of or look for and see if we get rid of any residual soil that may be in there. There's some signs of some fungus, but overall we've got some promising signs. We're getting some new buds here coming out on this one, and this dendrobium, which is different. These are all phalaenopsis. But this is a dendrobium. This one just started shooting up some new growth, so we're getting some positive signs. So what we're gonna do is just move over to the sink. Oh, one more thing. We also, about, I don't know, 2 months ago, we got this wonderful silver dollar plant, and we weren't sure it would do well in Leca. It's a succulent. It took off. So we're gonna just do a flush for this guy. The roots are just going gangbusters in here. We need to change out the water, so we'll go through that step in a minute. So, are you ready to dig in? Let's grow. So we've brought all the plants over here. Before we start with the orchids, I'm just going to start with the silver dollar plant. One thing you want to do is turn your water on for a little bit and get it room temperature. Don't get it hot, don't get it cold. Just the Goldilocks temperature, so the plants aren't either too hot or too cold. This is just about right. Maybe make it a little cooler. And this will be different than what we're going to do with the orchids. We're going to pour out all the water inside our container, and we're going to clean the pot. I'll get to that in a minute. This is still a little warm. Yeah, that's about right. A little cooler. There we go. So this is room temperature. So here, what we were talking about earlier. Look at, whoops, daisy. We have all these new roots. Look at those kids. Look at them. Super happy. Man. Okay, so now what I'm just going to do is just flush it. That's what this is what a flush looks like. You can hit the sides. Get the leaves. A little more gentle on this new growth here. Come out of the plant. I want to just give it a good flush all the way through. Yeah, a little grit come out. So you may notice, like right here, have a little bit of fungus. We're going to come back in a second and spray this with hydrogen peroxide, 3%. Take care of that a little bit. Maybe a little bit of dirt that got in there, and it's creating a little bit of fungus. Perfectly okay, and the hydrogen peroxide won't hurt the plant. So we did a pretty good job. This guy's pretty much well flushed. Since he's doing so well, we're going to go and just put him back in the container. But before we do that, I'm going to be back in a second. I'm going to spray this with hydrogen peroxide. Okay, so now we're just going to start with the phalaenopsis orchids. What you want to do is take pour out the water in the cache container and clean this out, and we'll do that in a minute. But here, we're looking around, we can see some of these roots probably have died off. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove all of the leca from the net container and trim away any dead, and obviously keep whatever new growth is coming out. So I'm just going to pour it out in this container here. Lift it up. Pour out the old leca. We're going to sit there and recycle this leca with new. We'll just boil it and then let it dry out and save it. But what we're going to do now is sort of rinse these roots again. But you can see that this guy's alive, but some of this down here has died. So we're just going to cut away more of the dead and encourage the new growth. And there may be new growth that will eventually come out right at the base here. But the orchid's hanging in there, doing pretty well, still flowering, which is amazing. It looks like it's trying to do new flower. So we're just going to rinse it a little bit, and I'm just going to feel around for the dead. This is dead. This is alive. Dead. Yeah, totally dead. So start trimming it. All this is gone now. This is all dead. So I'm going to go right. Yep, and this has died right back here. So just tried to keep it. This has died. Wow, dead. This is all dead. And down here looks like it's dying, so I'm going to cut it off here. This stuff is firm to the touch. So this is what we have left. Now, which we obviously want to do, is come back and spray this with 3% hydrogen peroxide. And obviously, before you do any of your trimming, remember to also spray your cutting scissors so that you don't inadvertently bring any pathogens into the plant. So we're just going to continue to go through assembly line fashion and remove the roots, pour the Leca into the other container, and then we'll come back after we do that, and I'll talk to you about how we reinstall them back in new Leca. Look at that. We've got so many new roots coming out. We're really happy with how some of these orchids have taken off. I want to point out the reason why we are pouring out the Leca and using new is that you just want to do it as a precautionary measure. Leca can sometimes harbor some harmful bacteria over a period of time. So you want to boil it and then you can recycle it and use it again. But your plants will be fine in Leca for several months at least if you're just doing regular semi-hydroponics. So here's the process where I'm just checking the roots to see which have died and which have continued to grow. So the action to take here is to simply feel the roots and see if they're very spongy or slick. That means they're most likely dead. Discoloration doesn't always mean that they're dead. But if you look here carefully, I'm going to point out in a second, there's new roots that are coming out at the base. That's going to happen a lot when you repot in Leca. A lot of the older roots will hang in there, but some will die off. But you'll start getting these really big, strong, fat roots coming up just above where I'm cutting. That's happened to almost all of the orchids we planted in Leca, and we're thrilled. That tells us that the plants are just ready to take off. And now I'm just spraying it with some hydrogen peroxide to take care of any pathogens that may be on the plant. I'll just speed up the process for you as we go along. Wow, look at those roots. I'm so proud of our babies. Look at them growing. I'm especially proud of this orchid because it started to grow a baby off of an old flower stalk. So we had 7 that we initially repotted from sphagnum and soil, nursery, the original plants from the nursery, into Leca, and it looks like two or two that were really beat up didn't make it, but we actually got a new one from this. So we've almost had, if you consider this new baby, 0 loss. Super, super happy way Leca is working. And now you can see I'm moving over to the dendrobium orchid. It grows differently than the phalaenopsis, and the flowers are obviously different as well. But this guy really, really has a ton of roots. That was quite surprising. So now that we've trimmed off all the dead roots, we've cleaned all of our containers and our net pots as well. Ta-da! Okay, now we're in the home stretch. Now that we've trimmed up the orchids and cleaned the net container and the pot, you just need to grab clean Leca, pour it into the new net container, set your orchid to the right height where you have it set where the roots that were growing in Leca before are back in there, but some of these areas that are sticking up, let them continue to stick up. Then grab your container, fill it up to the bottom 1/4. You can add a half strength fertilizer mix. We have done some prior videos where you can catch the information on that. Okay, so we've repotted them all in Leca. I think they're very happy. There's only one, I think this little guy here, that may not make it, but it was a long shot before, but we're gonna still see if he can come back. What we like to do also when we're repotting in Leca is just top it off with a little bit of the same fertilizer in the water from above, just a little bit, just to run along the edge of the orchid's aerial roots, whichever ones that are popping out, just to do a little bit of TLC. So it can just kind of migrate down. And that's about it. You don't need to do much more. You just check it every week or two, depending on where you have them. We have ours in indirect light, obviously. We have some facing north, some just in the middle of the living room, some in the dining area. And I got that one already. And that should do it. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time.
We want to thank you again for joining us. And if you like what you see, please consider subscribing to our channel and let your friends and family know too. Thanks again.